My engineering experience started with my joining the U.S. Army in 1954. I had 1 year of college, and the GI Bill, Korean War GI Bill, was running out at the end of the year. So I tried to get drafted, and that didn't work, and so I joined the Army for 3 years. After basic training, I was, by the way, they give you a series of tests in those days before you even get to basic training. I was sent to Germany as part of a combat battalion. Because of my earlier test scores, which I just referred to, I was sent to a special radio repair school in Ansbach, which is down near Nuremberg. I was stationed in Gießen, which is up near Frankfurt. At that time, effective radio communication was critical for members of the military serving in the field. It was in the 50s. Students in that school were from the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps. And some of them actually had graduate degrees in electrical engineering. In discussions with these few graduates, they said, "What do you plan on studying when you go back to college?" And I said, "Well, I guess my major was chemistry." And their response was, "Oh no, with your skills you need to major in electrical engineering. There you could have many important and interesting and well-paid positions to support the needs of our nation." From that time, I knew that I would major in electrical engineering. Because of that decision in my career, for example, I was able to, just a couple examples, launch astronauts Scott Carpenter and Wally Schirra, part of the Mercury program. They were launched right after John Glenn. And I was the guidance and control engineer that said go for guidance and control for their flights. After the Mercury program, I transferred to Goddard Space Flight Center, who had just taken over part of NASA at the Cape. And we launched multiple different rockets into orbit for the Gemini program. And primarily, we launched the target vehicles, and Gemini would rendezvous with about a half dozen target vehicles in preparation for Apollo, because when they came off the moon, they would have to rendezvous. So that was all we did in that 6 years was in preparation for Apollo. After Apollo 11 landed on the moon, I came back to Florida, left NASA. They said, "Take a leave of absence and come back." And I said, "No, I want to be a professor the rest of my life." So I came back to Florida in '69, September, and got my doctorate degree in May of '71. What I didn't mention is when I was working at the Cape, there was a Genesis program, and I got my master's degree from the University of Florida in Genesis by taking courses in Genesis. So it worked out real well. In fact, I took more than my master's courses, and that's why I was able to get through the PhD with really just doing a dissertation. I then returned to, after 4 years, I went to look for a professor job, and it was hard to find one, but I was hired in at Florida Institute of Technology in Melbourne, where I served 4 years in the electrical engineering department. Meanwhile, that was 71 to 75. In 72, this outfit called AFTAC, Air Force Technical Application Center, moved from Washington to Patrick Air Force Base. And their job was to monitor the world for nuclear testing and to participate in the international meetings in Vienna, Austria. So I returned. They talked me into taking a job with them, with one of the contractors, and I worked for 20 years for two contractors, 30 years really, with 2 contractors doing all kinds of things, worrying about nuclear testing, seismic, infrasound, and radionuclides, and to monitor and limit nuclear testing around the world. Later, in my final position at AFTAC and at Patrick Air Force Base, I was a civilian flag officer in the Air Force for 20 years, continuing to represent the U.S. at the UN's Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization in Vienna, Austria. It has been a great privilege and honor and pleasure to serve our nation for these 60 years. I am 89 years old, and I owe it all to the University of Florida Electrical and Computer Engineering program. Thank you to our college for my outstanding engineering education. And that is sincere. I did my dissertation under a fellow named Don Childers, who was wonderful, and I see Sashio Sunmoto's name out there. We were in the PhD program together, and we both studied under Don Childers.